According to the Bible, sin is either an action or thought against the will of God, with the will of God just being a fancy way of saying the desires of God or the law of God. In the same way that your local government has some laws of what you can and cannot do, God also has laws. And so examples of God's laws of things you should not do are lying, stealing, murder, adultery, pride, and in biblical terms, pride is just thinking of yourself as more important than other people. Greed, gossip, drunkenness, idolatry, which in the Bible is worshiping something or someone other than God. And you can see from this list that God's law is different than our local government laws already. There are some things that they have in common, like murder is out for everybody, stealing is a no for everybody. But then God has other things as well. The standard is higher, so there are also things like gossip, lying, pride that are on that list, sin. One of my favorite late pastors, Tim Keller, says that sin isn't only doing bad things, it's more fundamentally making good things into ultimate things. Sin is building your life and meaning on anything, even a very good thing, more than on God. So in the Bible, there's plenty of stories of people making little gods out of metal or wood and then worshiping those things that they had just made. And though there are still examples of that happening in the world today, what I think happens more often in the Western world is we are worshiping things like status, beauty, money, a career, a relationship, a family, things like that. And to the point of the quote, it's not that any of those things are bad necessarily, but they do become bad when we put them on a higher pedestal than God, when we sacrifice to those things instead of to God, when we spend our life trying to achieve these things instead of spending our lives trying to live and love and worship God. So the Bible also mentions two different types of sin, sins of commission and sins of omission. Sins of commission are when you do or say something that could be classified as sin, and sins of omission are when you don't do or say something that you ought to. So a couple examples. In Exodus chapter 20, verses 13 through 16, it says, "You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor," and then it goes on. But these are all sins of commission. These are doing the wrong thing. But then in Matthew chapter 5, verse 28 says, "But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart." So that's an example of a sin of commission as well, but instead of an action, it's a thought. So this is another area where God's law is different than our law. Is it's not just behavior; it's also there's a care towards what's going on inside of our minds. Now in James chapter 4, verse 17. Says, "So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin." And this is speaking to those sins of omission, not doing the right thing. And so that could include, lots of different things. I think the verse sums it up like, whoever knows the right thing to do and you don't do it, it's not for you, it's sin. So we're going to have some of these that are shared and some of these that are individual to our unique situations when we go along our day. You're going to need to read your Bible for a comprehensive list, but I think it's also worth paying attention to Jesus in the Gospels when he says that the highest law is loving God with all your heart, mind, and soul and strength, and the second law would be to love other people. And so generally, even if you don't have every single sin memorized, you can kind of know where you're standing by whether or not your actions and thoughts are loving towards God and others or not. So add your questions in the comments if you have any on this topic or other theological topics. I'd love to answer them in a future video. You can also check the notes for relevant links and subscribe for future content. Thanks so much.